Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or a text on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, a crime is solved because of the very cameras the people in Seattle want turned off before the World Cup. But before we get to any of that, we have a very special treat today and a very special guest joining us right now. You may have seen that Washington made the national news again because the Department of Housing and Urban Development is launching an investigation into our state's Covenant Homeownership program. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We really are really happy to have back here on the show, Scott Turner. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, sir, Ari. Great to be with you again.
It is so great to have you back. And I was so excited to see this investigation because you had the best quote I have seen in ages. You said, DEI is dead when you announced this investigation. Tell us what's going on, please.
Yes, sir. So at HUD, we've had other investigations into local municipalities like Minnesota and Boston, but this is a statewide investigation into Washington State's Covenant Home Ownership Program. And the reason why we have launched this investigation, Ari, is because our job here at HUD is to uphold and to enforce the Fair Housing Act. And we are under the suspicion, if you will, is why we launched the investigation, is that in Washington State, they are using the Fair Housing Act to form discriminatory housing policies that aren't based on merit, aren't based on need, but literally are based on race. And in the Trump administration, we want to protect the civil rights of all Americans, not according to their race, but all Americans. And so we want equal rights, but not extra rights. And we have reason to believe that this investigation is due to people receiving preferential treatment for down payment assistance and closing cost assistance because of their race.
Yeah, it's insane to watch this whole thing. They did a whole study on redlining, and then they said, we're just going to throw out all these groups that were victims of redlining and just give these down payments on homes to whoever we want to give them to. And you can't discriminate based on race when it comes to housing. And yet they went ahead and did this.
That's right. I mean, we have 7 protected classes, under the Fair Housing Act. And my job as a secretary is to uphold the Fair Housing Act and to enforce the law. But when you have a literal statement and policy that says that if you have a parent or a grandparent or a great-grandparent, that is Black or Hispanic or Native American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, Korean, Asian, and so forth, then you get preferential treatment, if you will, or you can qualify for this program with down payment assistance and closing costs. However, if you are of Caucasian American or European or Jewish American or Japanese American, then you categorically are ineligible. Well, that's a double whammy of the Fair Housing Act, giving preferential treatment because of your race and then discriminating against others because of their race.
Yeah, and what's even crazier is in that study they used for this thing, they said, well, the Jews and the Japanese were redlined, but you don't get the assistance. I don't think anybody should get this assistance, but I'll take what I can get with this investigation. I'm really happy you guys are doing it, but that's not the only thing the Trump administration is doing to bring down housing costs. Around here, we talk about affordability all the time, and the president just signed an executive order to try and make things more affordable in housing. Please tell us about that.
That's exactly right. And as you alluded to, the president did sign 2 executive orders. One of those is to remove the regulatory barriers of the construction of affordable housing. We want to take a whole of government approach from the federal standpoint, state and local standpoint, to really take inventory of the regulatory environment that is so burdensome and that has really crippled building and construction and development, if you will, of affordable housing. And so the president, this is a top of mind for him. It is a priority for him, myself, and other leaders around the administration. The regulatory environment through the years, let's take this one instance. $94,000 in regulations $94,000 to the total cost of a single-family home is regulation. If you think about it, that's almost $100,000 of fees and burdensome regulations to the total cost of a single-family home. That makes homes unaffordable. During the Biden administration, they have these green energy, if you will, mandates that added almost $30,000 to a price of a project in housing. And so we are rescinding and taking these things down, taking these burden regulations down so that the American people can achieve the American dream of home ownership.
Secretary Turner, in the last few minutes we have with you, and I know it's a really busy day in Washington, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us. I don't think a lot of people understand how enforcing laws at the border, getting rid of deporting illegal alien criminals who shouldn't be here, brings down the cost of housing. Your department has been doing a lot of that work and helping out with that and making the case. Can you explain it to my audience, please?
Yes, sir, and thank you for bringing that up. You know, a lot of people not that they don't understand, but haven't really grasped the brevity. When you have tens of millions of people that come across our border illegal, that are unchecked and unvetted, that put a tremendous strain on our housing supply and made the cost of housing go up. And Ari, 100% of the rental demand, 100% of the increase in rental demand in New York and California and other blue states was because of illegal immigration. And because of this, it made the houses that should be for American citizens, which is our only priority, it made them not available, 100% of the increase. But because of President Trump's strong immigration policies and deportation actions, these numbers have come drastically down. And so that increase has gone away. These houses are now for the American people. And it's because we have a president that prioritizes America and America only. During the Biden administration, you know, carte blanche was given to illegal aliens, but that is dead and gone. And we prioritize American people at HUD and will continue to do so. The EOs that the president signed are helping us to bring down costs. His immigration and deportation actions are helping us to bring down costs and also to raise the supply of housing for American people.
Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for everything you're doing on behalf of the American people, and thank you so much for looking out for all of us here in Washington, because I asked you during our first interview I had when I came to the White House, I said, when is the cavalry coming to help us out? And it looks like it's on the way, so we really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me, Ari. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate. That's the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Scott Turner. We were lucky enough to get him here on such a busy day that there is in Washington, D.C., but there's more good news. Do you know that now the Trump administration's Treasury Department has launched a new program to reward fraud whistleblowers with up to 30% of the fines that are imposed on criminals? So let me explain this for a second here. Let's say you say, hey, Ari, I found out that the daycare next to me is fraudulent. Would you mind passing this along to the Trump administration? I will pass it along with full credit to you. And then if the person is convicted, you get 30% of the fines against them. Quote, as promised, Treasury will reward whistleblowers who provide timely, actionable information on fraud, sanctions violations, and other significant illicit finance activity. That's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. President Trump has been clear that Americans have a right to know that their tax dollars are not being diverted to fund acts of global terror or to fund luxury cars for fraudsters. At Treasury, we follow the money. And we strongly encourage individuals to come forward with credible tips to help safeguard our financial system. The program, according to the New York Post, includes tipsters of Medicaid and Medicare fraud. Now, this whole thing comes after Scott Bessent visited Minnesota in January, which is where Somali immigrants allegedly defrauded the government welfare programs of at least $9 billion since 2018. Now, a lot of people are mad because Abdul Abubakar Ali, who is one of the fraudsters, in fact, he's one of the people who defrauded out of the Feeding Our Future organization from the U.S. government. They're the ones that were serving all the Phantom meals. They're the ones that had the connections to Ilhan Omar. He only got sentenced to 1 year for $3 million in fraud, and people are furious about this. Absolutely furious. This is a guy who pleaded guilty, so that means by pleading guilty, it probably meant he negotiated this complete wackadoodle plea agreement where he only gets 1 year in jail. According to the Post-Millennial, the nonprofit enrolled in the federal child nutrition program under the sponsorship of Feeding Our Future and claimed to have served over 1.3 million meals to children between December of 2020 and June 2021. This is during the COVID times. This is the program which Ilhan Omar sponsored and knew there were no guardrails, and then they expanded the program during COVID, and that's when the mega fraud kicked in. The nonprofit submitted fake invoices, claiming to have purchased food from a vendor, S&S Catering. The Department of Justice said at the time, but S&S Catering did not provide Youth Inventors Lab any meals, and Youth Inventors Lab did not serve any meals. In total, Youth Inventors Lab fraudulently received over $3 million in reimbursements from Feeding Our Future. Ali submitted fake invoices from his company Bill Term Solutions to Youth Inventors Lab, claiming to have provided technology services that were not actually performed. He personally pocketed more than $100,000. Now, the judge sentenced him to only 1 year in jail, and people are furious about this. Just 1 year. But then again, financial crimes aren't like killing somebody. And also, when you make a plea deal, they don't send you away for as much time, which means with good behavior, this guy could be out in just a few months. But he's just one of 96 people who are now seeing consequences for their actions. Can you imagine if they started investigating more of the fraud here in Washington? And it's going to come down to you guys, because I know that a lot of you have sent me the fraud that you found. In fact, you don't even need to send it to me. I'd love it for social media content. I'd love it to pass along, and I don't even take a commission on any of this stuff. But if you find this stuff, you can contact the Treasury Department directly. Or if you prefer, you can send it to me, and I'll contact the Treasury Department for you. No problem whatsoever. The goal is here to find as much fraud as we can. And this is actually incentivizing citizen journalists or just listeners of the show who, anytime I mention fraud in Washington on the show, I get tips. Hey, Ari, this daycare is near me. And I don't think they're actually operating. I've never seen any kids there before. Lo and behold, we go into the Washington State checkbook. We look them up, and they're getting tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars from Washington's government. Now, as much fun as it is to show all the fraud in Washington's government, if you can make the link between the fact that is part of a federal program, that's when we get to report it to the feds. So, for example, a lot of these daycare programs get funding through federal programs. It has to be through a federal program. It has to lead to a conviction. It's not just, you send me a whole list of things, I pass it along, and then they go, yeah, fraud bad. No. It has to actually result in a conviction for you to get paid. It's nice that they're incentivizing this stuff over at the Justice Department. Quote, individuals located in the United States or abroad who provide information may be eligible for awards if the information they provide leads to successful enforcement action that results in monetary penalties exceeding $1 million. The IRS runs a similar program. The reward payments will be directly from the fines, meaning that no taxpayer money will be used, according to the Treasury Department. Now, here's something else. Why they specifically call out people living abroad. Well, hey, if you're a terrorist organization that's getting money like Al-Shabaab from the Somalis and you want to rat out what's going here in the U.S., you can do that. No, I don't think they're going to pay out a terrorist organization. I'm just kidding. But what they are trying to do here is they're also trying to incentivize the people who are part of the fraud to maybe reveal the fraud. So, for example, a lot of the people who were involved in the Feeding Our Future scandal, or the other scandal in Minnesota, which is widely known, which is the one where people were registering their kids for autism treatment and counseling, and their kid didn't have autism and their kid wasn't actually getting treatment. They were the ones who were saying, if you don't give us more money, we're going to blow the whistle on you. And some of these cases were broke because some people said, here's what's happening inside this fraud because they didn't get paid enough. Now the government's going, well, I guess we might be able to incentivize that behavior. So tell us what's going on. And we're more than happy to shut this down for you and reward you at the same time. Do you think this is a good move? Do you think this is a bad move? You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Because this fraud is rampant. It's not just what we've seen with the daycares here in Washington State. It's not just what we've seen with the elderly care in places like Minnesota and California. We're seeing this kind of stuff across the U.S. This is stuff we are seeing all over the place. For example, tell me if this sounds familiar. Just take out the word New York and replace it with Seattle for their homeless Inc. Because it sounds like something that I assume is happening here. Listen to the story from News Nation.
Roberto Samity walked out of Brooklyn federal court in silence after his arraignment. He's one of 4 people now facing charges in a corruption investigation tied to the city-funded homeless shelter organization, Braggs. Federal prosecutors say Samity and another defendant, Ronald Jean Torellis, stole more than $1 million from the taxpayer-backed nonprofit. They now both face several charges, including wire fraud and embezzlement. The indictment, unsealed Tuesday, drawing swift reaction from Mayor Zohran Mamdani.
We'll definitely be looking into these because any allegation, especially if it's being substantiated, of improper action and behavior is one that has to be followed up on.
Prosecutors say the shelter leaders steered contracts worth millions of dollars to favored vendors controlled by Eduardo St. Fort and Miguel Jorge in exchange for bribes and kickbacks. Jorge was also arraigned Tuesday. St. Fort will be arraigned at a later date. Both face program bribery and related charges. The indictment comes as investigators also probe whether City Council member Farrah Lewis and her sister Debbie Lewis, an aide to Governor Kathy Hochul, accepted bribes connected to city funding for the nonprofit, according to a search warrant viewed by the Associated Press. The sisters were not among those taken into custody. A spokesperson for the city council responding in a statement saying the council takes any potential misconduct extremely seriously. New Yorkers deserve confidence in their government. It is essential that the federal investigation proceed fairly and expeditiously to bring this matter to a resolution. Pix 11 News reached out to Councilmember Lewis's office for comment and is waiting to hear back.
Do you know why Zohran Mamdani is so excited about this? You say, why is Zohran Mamdani so excited about prosecuting fraud? Because everybody who did it in this case is white. That's why. Because he's going after whitey, in his opinion. That's what's going on here. Now, I'll say this, is that for the people who always say, oh, you're just going after the Somalis because you're a bunch of racists. No, we should be going after the fraud everywhere, no matter who's doing it. Nick Shirley just happened to find the Somali fraud first. You think this isn't going on in other communities? I guarantee you it is. Imagine how much money we will save in our government spending if it isn't going to fraud. Taxes are coming up. It's April 1st, my friends. You got 14 days left unless you're filing for an extension. And it really annoys me because I know when I fork over all that money to the government, how much of it is actually going to fraud. And that ticks me off. But now you can do something about it. You can report it, and you might even get rewarded for it. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, including a crime is solved because of the very cameras that Katie Wilson wants to turn off and stop using, and Turd Ferguson wants to ban. We'll give you all the details up next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. I think by now, everybody has seen the video of the light rail station where there's a guy standing on the platform waiting for the train on his cell phone when a lunatic who was released from custody of a mental hospital here in Washington who tried to kill his own sister tried to push a random bystander in front of the light rail. I think we've all seen this video. Thank you to our friend Jeremy Harris from Como News for getting that video. Last night, I called my daughter into the room, and I call her upstairs. I said, sweetie, I need you to watch a video for a second. And I pull this thing up, and I put it on the screen in the office, and she's watching it, and the reaction was immediate, whoa! Because you see this guy, I think his hand, the victim, his hand actually pushes off the light rail at some point. That's how close he got to it, where his hand is going along the side of it. And then the guy tries to push him into it again. Now, luckily, the man is in custody. Luckily, they caught him. But I said to my daughter, sweetie, what do you learn from this video? And she goes, people are crazy. I go, yes, that you didn't learn that from this video, sweetie. What did you learn from this video? She goes, don't be on your cell phone when you're waiting for the train. I said, exactly right. And that goes for any city, not just Seattle. I said, what else did you learn? And she said, that man, behind him, there's plenty of space. He should have his back up against the wall so nobody can come push him from behind. I said, perfect. That's my girl. Well done. And I said, sweetie, it doesn't matter if you live in New York. It doesn't matter if you live in Los Angeles. Wherever there's a train, wherever it is, you got to be aware of these things. They used to tell us this growing up in New York City. They would say, don't be near the edge of the platform. Don't be distracted, because back then there was this rash of people being lit on fire in the subways. Yeah, they were doing that to the people selling tokens. That's actually where the movie Money Train got the idea from. And they were throwing people in front of subways. Apparently it's back. Everything's retro again. Everything from the 90s, including shoving people like U.S. Air Force veterans in front of trains. So up next, I call up my son. And I said, buddy, come here. I want you to watch this. And he said, what, Dad? And I said, watch this video. And he watches it. And I go, what's this guy doing wrong? And he goes, well, he's on his cell phone, and his back's not up against the wall. I said, perfect. That's a child who's been abroad for a while and knows that he oversees that he has to pay attention to these kind of things while waiting for mass transit systems. I'm not victim blaming here. I'm using it as a teaching moment, because why would you think that somebody would come up and do that, especially in a city like Seattle? Well, now that we have this video, Seattle Police Officers Guild posted this. An attempted murder at Seattle's Northgate Light Rail Station caught on camera, not by chance, not by luck, but because investigators had access to public CCTV. From those cameras, police can track movement, build timelines, and identify suspects in moments that would otherwise go cold. Now imagine this case without that footage. That's exactly what's at risk. Seattle's Mayor Katie Wilson's decision to pause the RTCC program, the very system that gives investigators access to these cameras, means fewer leads, slower arrests, and more criminals walking free. This isn't politics, it's public safety. The footage shared by Jeremy Harris shows what's possible when officers have the right tools. Take those tools away, and cases like this don't get solved. Seattle residents deserve better. Great investigators, what they need. Need what they need. Keep CCTV in place. Now let's remember, Katie Wilson wants to shut off the system and maybe turn it back on for the World Cup. Maybe. Now, a lot of you have concerns about the World Cup and the safety and people who are coming here. Well, actually, I got a hold of the State Department. And coming up at 4:30 today, we have a representative from the State Department joining us to tell us what they're doing about security here. Because Katie Wilson seems to virtue signal about a lot of stuff, but she's not actually running the show. Is the Seattle Police Department working with the feds? Are there going to be cameras? Is safety going to be in place? State Department's going to answer that question for us at 4:30 today during that interview when we ask. Because I have a feeling Katie Wilson's going to be relatively normal until after the World Cup, because she really doesn't want Trump getting on national TV and going, I am moving the World Cup out of Seattle. We're going to have it on the White House lawn. Egypt versus Iran. Iran is actually now going to be the 51st state. That's my big announcement tonight. That's what we're going to do. Big announcement. Iran is going to be the 51st state, and we're going to have the World Cup. because that lady, that crazy lady, she's crazy. The socialist ruined a beautiful city. Seattle is a beautiful city. Have you ever been to Seattle? Have you ever seen them throw the fish? It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's fun. I love Seattle. But that crazy lady, that crazy socialist ruined it. She really doesn't want that. She really, really doesn't want that. This one here, right here from our friend in the 425, is really excited about the fact that now you can call in and report fraud. Says, great move. Take away Nick Brown's latte breaks. That's good. John in Lakewood says, yes, on rewarding those ratting out transfer payment fraud. Very good. This one here from the 12th Man for Life. This is such a great call to reward people for turning in fraudsters. Money makes everything work or come to light. I can imagine all these younger people like Nick Shirley finding all the wasted money. It's everywhere. Almost all the younger generation wants to be big on YouTube. The Democrats must be losing their minds. Yes, and I'll tell you something. This is a great way to make money, my friends. Investigate fraud. Become a citizen journalist. They used to say there was no money in being a journalist. Well, it looks like the federal government's about to incentivize it and not even use your taxpayer dollars to do it. Just do it with all the fines they're going to get back. I like this idea. You know what else I like are the arguments that the Trump administration is making to get rid of birthright citizenship. Up next, you're going to get to hear those arguments and plus the ridiculous, insane arguments of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. They're terrible and shows why she is probably the dumbest justice to ever occupy that chair. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Earlier today, President Donald Trump attended the oral arguments on the birthright citizenship case, which is right before the Supreme Court. He is the first president to attend the arguments. Now, for people who are like, he's trying to intimidate the justices. Guys, have you ever watched any of his State of the Union addresses? Any of them? He's literally called them names through their own faces. He did it at the last one. So if he wanted to intimidate the justices, I don't think this is the way of going about it. This is one of his pet policies. He wants to see how it goes down. I'm actually kind of surprised. No other president ever went beforehand. Look, not everybody likes to watch courtroom dramas. Maybe he likes Law and Order, and he gets to see it for himself. Freaking out because he showed up to this? That's just beyond ridiculous. Really, just crazy that people lose their minds over something like that. Now, what is the basic argument? Do we have, or will we allow people to just come to the country? Let's say, forget the illegals for a second. Let's say somebody is here visiting from France. They just flew in and they were super pregnant and had a baby here. Now that baby gets U.S. citizenship? That's a person who didn't even intend to have the baby here. Let's say the baby was delivered early. I'm leaving out the illegal alien aspect of this. I'm leaving that out for a second. That person now gets citizenship. That's what we're talking about here.
That's how Bruce Lee got his citizenship.
Isn't it? It's something like that,
yeah.
right?
His parents, I think his father was in the Chinese opera.
Yeah.
And they were playing in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife was with him, and she gave birth to Bruce Lee. And he had to return to the States, I think, before the end of your 18th year.
It was something
like that
yeah.
to become a citizen.
Yeah, perfect example. Perfect example. So, as much as we love Bruce Lee, as much as we love the movies, should he have gotten citizenship just because his parents were here for that? Forget the illegal alien aspect about this. Forget the people who come here intentionally to do it. That is what we are discussing here. Now, Justice Samuel Alito, during his questioning of the people who are bringing the case for the Trump administration, this is the Solicitor General John Sauer, really did a pretty good job making the case for getting rid of this whole thing.
That they had in mind when they adopted the general rule, or do we say they adopted a general rule, they meant for that to apply to later applications that might come up? Justice Scalia had an example that dealt with this situation. He imagined an old theft statute that was enacted well before anybody conceived of a microwave oven, and then afterwards someone is charged with the crime of stealing a microwave oven, and this fellow says, well, I can't be convicted under this because the microwave oven didn't exist at that time. And he dismissed that. There's a general rule there, and you apply it to future applications. And what we're dealing with here is something that was basically unknown at the time when the 14th Amendment was adopted, which is illegal immigration. So how do we deal with that situation when we have a general rule?
Yeah, I strongly agree with the way that you framed it, that there is a general principle, that's a broad principle that's adopted in the phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And we submit that our theory of allegiance and domicile-based allegiance is what explains those specific exceptions that everybody was aware of, but it is broad enough to sweep in future situations. And as you pointed out, illegal immigration did not exist then. Now, the problem of temporary visitors did exist. And it's very interesting that as you look at pages 26 and 28 of our brief, commentators going from 1881 until 1922 are uniformly saying the children of temporary visitors are not included. Now that logic, we say, it naturally extends. It's really an a fortiori case. If you have someone who enters illegally by the 1880s, there are restrictions on immigration. If you've entered illegally, it's kind of a well-established principle of law going back to the Code of Justinian that says you're not allowed to be there. You don't have the legal capacity to create domicile there.
Now, that's a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo that maybe some of you didn't understand. So that you don't have to admit you didn't understand it. Here's the basic thing. They're saying what was the intent of the law. And the words subject to the jurisdiction thereof, meaning you're not a U.S. citizen, so you're not subject to its jurisdiction. You are subject to the jurisdiction of wherever you came from. Those words are what's at play here. Now, the problem is a lot of the other justices aren't buying this argument. They're not buying this at all. And I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned that the Trump administration is going to lose this vote 5-4, or worse yet, 7-2. Here's Justice John Roberts sounding extremely skeptical of this position.
That based on Chinese media reports, there are 500 birth tourism companies in the People's Republic of China whose business is to bring people here to give birth and return to that nation.
Having said all that, you do agree that that has no impact on the legal analysis before us?
I think it's. I'd quote what Justice Scalia said in his Hamdan dissent, where their interpretation has these implications that could not possibly have been approved by the 19th century framers of this amendment. I think that shows that they've made a mess. Their interpretation has made a mess of the provision.
Well, it certainly wasn't a problem in the 19th century.
No, but of course, we're in a new world now, as Justice Alito pointed out, where 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen.
Well, it's a new world. It's the same Constitution.
Now that's actually a really good point. Before you go, Justice John Roberts isn't a true conservative, before you say that, flip this on its head for a second. The case that the Solicitor General was making for the Trump administration is the same one that anti-gun activists make. It's the, nobody could have envisioned an AR-15. Nobody could have envisioned automatic weapons. Nobody could have envisioned machine guns. It's the same argument. It's the same Constitution. And I actually say is that if you want to change the law, if we're calling balls and strikes here, then change the law. Don't try to use the justice system to change the law. Do I agree with the government's position about subject to the jurisdiction thereof? Yes. Do I agree that there is a massive problem with birth tourism companies from China and elsewhere? Absolutely. This may not be the best way to fix it, though. I agree with a lot of their arguments, but that one is a problem. The bigger problem to me is not necessarily that argument. It's Ketanji Brown Jackson, who once again proves that she has no business actually being in the Supreme Court. Listen to this and tell me if you can make heads or tails of it.
I was thinking about this, and I think there are various sources that say this, that you obviously have permanent allegiance based on being born in whatever country you're from. That's what everybody recognizes. But you also have local allegiance when you are on the soil of this other sovereign. And I was thinking, I, a U.S. citizen, am visiting Japan. And what it means is that, if I steal someone's wallet in Japan, the Japanese authorities can arrest me and prosecute me. It's allegiance, meaning can they control you as a matter of law. I can also rely on them if my wallet is stolen.
Wait, what are you talking about? Okay, I don't even understand what she's talking about, but I think accidentally she just made the case for enforcing border law. Because even though we know she doesn't like enforcing border law, I think she just made the case that subject to the jurisdiction thereof, if you broke the law coming to this country illegally, a.k.a. stealing the wallet, then you should have to pay the penalty from the U.S. authorities. That's kind of what it sounded like to me. Wow. Just wow. DEI hire. That's all I can say. Didn't earn it. That's really it in this case. And every single time there is something before the Supreme Court, since she's been on it, there is a moment like this. Was it Mark Twain? I'm probably going to screw up this quote. Who said, better to remain silent and have everybody think you're a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. I'm pretty sure that's the quote, and I know exactly who that applies to right here. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends, including Kristi Noem's husband needs to get a lot off his chest. We'll tell you what we're talking about up next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I hate stories like this because they absolutely destroy my search history in my browser when I'm trying to understand what the hell is going on here. This is bad news overall. At least I got Mr. KVI here, so he knows it's for legit purposes of the show.
Yeah, I've been here a long time, and I've talked to people about how being a producer on a talk radio show, the things that you've Google searched at work is, over the years, troubling.
It's troubling. It's not great.
Yeah.
It's not great. And thanks so much, Kristi Noem's husband, for this latest scandal. Okay, I'm going to clean this up because a lot of you got kids in the car and you're driving home. So here's what happened. These pictures surfaced yesterday that show Kristi Noem's husband, Brian, wearing a really, really beige-colored tight shirt with balloons shoved underneath it. I assume those are balloons. Otherwise, they're prosthetics of some kind.
I would liken it to, and do you know at Halloween when you can get that full-blown like ape chest that you can strap on?
Yes.
And it's highly detailed?
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's got the belly button and nipples.
Yeah.
I would equate it, I think, to something like that.
I don't know if, I think you're being a little generous there.
Well, the reason I say it is because the nipple part. I mean, again, I'm just being descriptive here. I'm not being, but like they're very prevalent in
They are very prevalent.
Yeah. So if it were just balloons.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if it's the part of the balloon you tie up that are on the other side. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Whatever it is, her husband is doing that and wearing tight pink hot pants in some of these pictures too. Now, apparently he's into a fetish called bimbofication, which that's what ruined my search history when I started looking that up. Apparently it's something where people like to make themselves look like Barbie dolls, and this is the, completely fake, completely ridiculous. That's what this is about.
It's almost like some sort of a cosplay.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that was the only thing that I could tell was altered on the gentleman.
Yes.
Right? Like he
doesn't, no. It looks like he's still got all his equipment. He hasn't undergone surgery.
No,
or
I'm just saying,
like
but like he's not wearing a wig.
Right,
he's not
right.
wearing, he looks like him with this prosthetic
Which
chest.
is clearly a prosthetic. This is, you ain't fooling anybody here, dude.
Yeah.
You definitely ain't.
It's like comically exaggerated.
There you go. Comically exaggerated. It's like when Bugs Bunny puts on a dress and shoves some stuff up there to look like a girl.
But even more exaggerated.
Way more. It's like when, I don't know, an Austin Powers movie or something when you're cross-dressed. That's what this looks like. Okay. Now you got to start wondering, well, is this why Kristi Noem is allegedly having an affair with Corey Lewandowski, or did that trigger this mess, or whatever the case may be? Either way, it's not good. But there's something fascinating here, which is how hard the left is going after this. Wait a minute, guys. Now, I think this is awful, and I don't like any of this kind of stuff, but the left is like, see, look what he's doing, and I go, wait, hang on a second. If Kristi Noem was a Democrat and these pictures came out about her husband, it would be, he's a hero. How dare you attack her? Look how he identifies. I mean, how many people in the Biden administration did we comment on their appearances? Like the assistant deputy director of the Health and Human Services, or that dude who stole luggage that was supposed to be working on nuclear stuff.
But you know why they do that, though, is because they feel that the right is not accepting of alternative lifestyles as much as they are.
Oh,
so they get their chance to be like, ha, 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 you guys do it too. You just keep it secret. Ha, ha, ha.
I get that. But that doesn't seem to be the tack they're taking here. It's just, look at that. And if we made some of those comments about their side, they try to cancel us. Now, it unveils the hypocrisy, where you're like, you're supposed to be the virtue, you're supposed to be the virtuous ones who don't do this kind of stuff, and there it is. This is bad overall. This is all kinds of bad. And today, President Trump is like, that's terrible, that's bad. Kristi Noem was saying, I want privacy. Okay. All right. Well, apparently he didn't, because he put all these pictures on the internet and spent a lot of money on this stuff online. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, including CEO of JP Morgan is warning Washington about the income tax. How much more bad news do we need to get before people open their eyes? You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or a text on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, is it going to be safe to have the World Cup here in Seattle? We got somebody from the State Department to give us updates on what's being done to protect you. But before we get to any of that, so Turd Ferguson earlier this week signed the income tax. And we knew that as soon as the Democrats passed this thing, we know that more and more people were moving out. We know there was a 65% increase in the listings of homes on the multiple listing service, the Northwest Multiple Listing Service, went through the roof. 65% of homes over $2 million, which, you know, the people who make a lot of money can afford that. And by the way, it's not just millionaires moving out. It's people who know and follow politics that say this is eventually going to come to all of us. The Center Square wrote the following: although it's just been a day since Bob Ferguson signed a new state law imposing a 9.9% income tax on households that make $1 million, many residents haven't waited around for the bill's actual signing before putting the for sale sign on their home. Put a pin in that for a second, because if you want to be able to stay here, you're going to want to be part of our next contest, which is our Pay Your Bills contest. That's right, my friends. It is your chance to win $2,000. Today, we are going to give you a word. You text that word to the number we give you. Only that word, not your name, not your phone number, not anything else. Just text the word to the number we give you, and you'll be entered for a chance to win $2,000 in cash. Today's word is band, as in we're an American band, as in Band-Aid, as in join my band, as in I have a garage band. B-A-N-D, text the word band to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757.
Band of brothers.
Band of brothers. There you go. And I hope you win, because it's expensive to stay here, which is why so many people are getting out of here. Realtors are arguing the surge in high-value homes in Seattle indicates capital flight that could potentially undermine the state's economy. This is getting a lot worse. This is getting a lot worse. New listings are up 40%, pending listings up by 78%, and sales are up by 66.7% by the same time last year. Now, it could be up by a lot more because the NMLS only includes public sales, and a lot of rich people just do the private sales. We know that the vacancy rate in downtown Seattle is up to 33%. It's probably higher than that in the office vacancy rate. We know that 44% of business owners have considered moving their businesses out of Seattle, and this exodus is only going to continue. Now, what happens next? Seattle Socialist Mayor Katie Wilson goes, hey, I got an idea. Let's do taxes on the wealthy. Let's do that. And the businesses say, nope, not doing that. And now King County Executive Gurmay Zahalai announced that he wants more taxes too, because he wants to pay for more housing for the homeless. This is the plan, guys. As soon as the state does it, everybody else does it. I mean, these guys just copy each other's stupidity. It's really ridiculous. How's this working out for you? Well, guess what? Meta and Oracle announced more layoffs yesterday. Oracle laid off 491 Seattle area employees yesterday. Meta laid off a couple hundred more. This is getting worse and worse. We're now at over 20,000 people laid off in the tech sector just since the beginning of the year. I think if my math is correct, we're at over 30,000 now. But this is how many people are getting laid off, because why have these high-income jobs, these high-earner jobs that are going to get taxed here? They're hiring in other places. AI is a convenient excuse. Well, now the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, was talking about this. He was asked about this when he went on Fox and Friends today. And Brian Kilmeade, who's the host of Fox and Friends, and you can catch every single weekday from 6 to 9 a.m. right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Clearly, he's tuned in to what's going on in Washington, because listen to the question he asked.
Washington State today announced we have a millionaire's tax. They are putting a referendum in California, billionaire's tax. What's the reaction been, Jamie? People are going, okay, I got the message. I'm out of here. You have more people now in Dallas than you have in New York City.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. No, I tell people everyone's got to compete, including cities. And for a city to compete, of course, it's quality of life, it's your subways, it's your hospitals, but it's also individual taxes, estate taxes, corporate taxes, and it drives people out. So all you have to do is look at California versus Nevada, New York versus Florida, and there's a huge exodus taking place. It's not good for the city, and people just make a mistake, I'll just tax these people, but that's the outcome. And very often people think they're being moral by doing that, but they're not. What they're doing is they're hurting your own city, and unfortunately, people vote with their feet, and so...
Exactly. Getting called out by the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase. How much more bad news do we need, by the way? How much more bad news? In fact, actually, in the next couple of days, you're going to see an op-ed from me published in the New York Post, which I wrote about all this stuff because of how bad it is. Everybody looks at Washington as a cautionary tale. Well, not everybody. Remember yesterday, I played you this clip from Brian Kirshner. Remember what he said? He said, nobody's going to leave. What are you talking about?
Good morning. My name is Brian Kirshner. I'm a technology executive who lives in Seattle and works in AI. I'm really excited to be here today, even though it just might cost me a little more. Last year, I had a wealth event when our company was acquired. When we file federal taxes, I will owe one big payment. Big. I wish some of it was staying here in Washington because I believe in paying what I owe. For too long, rich people like me have paid less than we truly do, thanks to a tax code skewed our way. So our state budget can't do right by all people. That's about to start to change with this millionaire's tax. For those saying us rich folks will leave if taxed, I can promise you we won't pack up en masse. And any who leave will be replaced. Washington is on the brink of creating a lot of wealth through AI. We are right to capture some of it and make sure everyone benefits through education, healthcare, and more tax fairness for small businesses and working families. I commend Washington's legislators and the governor for doing the real work of fixing our tax code so we can take advantage of what will be a generational opportunity to ask the wealthy to contribute more to create the kind of communities we all want to live in. Thank you.
Woo! Woo! Now, we called this guy out yesterday, because just looking at his LinkedIn profile, it seems like this dude is a far-left activist, a defund the police activist. Now, what's funny is, when I posted this social media clip, I forget if it was before the show or after the show yesterday, I put it up on social media, this guy speaking at Turd Ferguson's bill signing for the income tax. This guy started getting called out by members of the tech community, but also people in his own neighborhood. Oh, this was great. So the people in the tech community are like, dude, we know you. You're full of it. We know what you're qualified for. We know what your wealth is. We know what the companies you were involved in, and you weren't very good at it. That's number one. The second thing he got called out for is apparently this dude lives on Nextdoor. You know, the social media site where you complain about everything, where every complainer in the world lives on that site, where all this dude talks about is far left causes, how great the income tax is, and how much he hates police. This is who this guy is. That's who Turd Ferguson brought up here because nobody else in the tech community believes any of this. All of them say, we're going to leave. And what's crazy is that some of them say, we're going to go back to California. Now, since we started discussing all this on the show, and you know that we had that week a couple weeks ago where we had a person from the tech community, another person from the tech community, another person from the tech community, because we were calling out how bad this is going to be for the Golden Goose here in Washington. Well, now a lot more people from the tech community are finding the show. A lot more are listening. A lot more are tuning in on social media. A lot more are subscribing. A lot more are following. And what I find funny about that is I get to see all their thoughts on life because I'm looking at them back. And when I see it, I get to see them calling out this guy who is a total shill for Turd Ferguson. You want to know how bad it is? Fox 13 is calling out how expensive it is to live here now. You think somebody with the means is going to stick around?
A new study says Washington State is the 5th most expensive place to live in the nation, and it's getting harder for people to make the numbers work. If you've been to the gas pump or the grocery store recently, you know it firsthand. Fox 13's Dan Griffin takes a closer look at the study and what shoppers say they're seeing now.
People we've talked with say it is getting more difficult to make ends meet. They're changing what they buy, and they're looking for sales.
It's just been climbing and climbing. There hasn't been any relief for anybody.
Outside Fred Meyer in Ballard, Rebecca Muscatel knows you need a strategy to save. A new study from Washington Roundtable and Kinetic West says Washington State is the 5th most expensive place in America, with prices rising faster than any other state and twice as fast as California. Are you surprised that we would rank as 5th most expensive in the nation?
I am.
Still, Elizabeth Olson says her shopping habits are changing.
I'm giving up my brand favorites to go to the lower price.
The study compares consumer spending over a 10-year period looking back to 2015. Housing and utility costs grew 62%. Transportation spending grew 51%. And grocery bills grew 50%. Washington Roundtable President Rachel Smith says it's not just Seattle, Tacoma, or Bellevue.
But unbelievably, 4 other Washington MSAs, Bremerton, Mount Vernon, Olympia, and Vancouver, not what you would think about, rank in the top 10% nationally.
Smith says state leaders need to reconsider tax policies, including the B&O tax, to reduce costs passed on to consumers. The study found Washington State saw a net loss of more than 55,000 people between 2021 and 2023, with many headed somewhere cheaper. It shows essentials make up 59% of spending, meaning every dollar matters even more to shoppers today. At least one woman told me the key to all of this is to take advantage of the deals at several stores. She says the days of shopping at just one place are long over. In Ballard, Dan Griffin, Fox 13 News.
Yeah, and I bet every single one of you, as you were listening to that, said the same thing. Said the exact same thing, because that's how it's expensive it's getting around here. Well, meanwhile, our governor, Bob Ferguson.
Yeah, it's not my name. All right, Turd Ferguson.
Today signed the operating budget for Washington State. And what's infuriating is the same guy who was talking about a budget deficit, a budget gap, we don't have enough money. This thing spends $2 billion more than it did last time, and it's not because of inflation. Just because they want to spend more. Oh, and guess what we found out today? There's another almost $1 billion budget gap coming. So that could be their excuse for whatever taxes they want to hit you with next year. Yeah, Turd Ferguson talks about all the cuts he made. No. You guys increased your spending, and you increased taxes again. Shall we go through his BS statement? My team and I worked in close partnership with legislatures to craft a budget that allows us to continue meeting Washingtonians' core needs, while also living within the state's means. Lie, lie, lie. Then, despite the harm done by the Trump administration and MAGA Congress. Okay, dude. These are all self-inflicted gunshots that you've done to the economy here. You guys are like Jim Carrey and me, myself, and Irene. And the state is like that cow lying on the road. You just keep shooting it in the head again and again. And it just ain't dying. You guys did this. You cut Medicaid. You cut Medicare. You cut essential services. And that wasn't the Trump administration. Living within our means? Tell me, how is trans surgeries for felons living within our means? All the other ridiculous stuff you guys spend money on? We secure important wins for affordability. I don't think you know what that word means. I really don't. Things are not getting more affordable around here. They're not. I also recently signed the millionaire's tax. Okay, how are things more affordable when you're increasing taxes? Last year, you signed the largest tax increase in state history. State history. Spare me your nonsense. I mean, do you care at all about what this is doing to the average Washingtonian?
Yeah, well, who gives a damn?
That's exactly what it is. He says our state agencies took $1 billion in reductions. Well, you cut some important things and you didn't cut a lot of the waste. Are you looking into the fraud? No, you're refusing to do so. Are you looking into any of the abuse? Now, what was nice was that he listed all the people who sponsored the budget and made the budget happen. Senator Robinson, Senator Ormsby, Vice Chair Senator Stanford, and Senator Noel Frame, Representative Gregerson, and Representative Mockery. They're the ones who caused this mess. Now, we know he's completely full of it, but Travis Couture had a great breakdown of it, saying that Turd Ferguson signed a record $80 billion budget that spends more than we project to receive in taxes. That's not living within your means. It hinges on our future of an unconstitutional income tax and illegal $4 billion rate of a police and firefighters' pension. That sounds like something essential they're cutting. Not to mention drains our reserves to one of the lowest in the country. A portion of the pension funds are already slated to cover deficit spending. Healthy budgets don't raid pensions, raise generationally large taxes every year, and raid reserves. On top of that, more spending on bloat and waste while cutting over $1.2 billion from Medicaid. That wasn't Trump. That was Fergie and the Democrats. $250 million from primarily poor and rural schools, with large cuts to child care and nursing homes. This budget is an attack on the poorest Washingtonians. Not presently accounted for in this budget, which is wildly out of balance, by at least 2028, if not sooner, after new revenue forecasts are published, is a $3 to $5 billion price tag for new public sector employee CBAs, which get pay increases, and other policies that were kicked down the road into the future. The income tax, at its best, projects $4 billion in revenue, which will likely not occur. Why? Because everybody's leaving the state. Who has the money that's supposed to go into that tax? He also said, combined with the $4 billion in rated pension funds, which is likely to get struck down in court, it's actually at best not even enough to cover the upcoming obligations, which include maintenance level increases, which total an additional $4 billion this year. In the near future, when predictable budget deficits occur again and there isn't enough revenue, Democrats will lower the threshold of the income tax to apply to the middle class with no real regressive tax relief because they can't afford it with their spending addiction. That's it right there. Travis Couture cautions that's unless we defeat it, rein in reckless spending, and more to follow on a plan to stop the reckless spending later. And by the way, Travis Couture is one of the people involved in the budget, and he calls the stuff out every year. And let's not forget, for the last 2 years, Republicans have proposed a budget which cut spending, cut waste, and was balanced and didn't raise taxes. And the Democrats decided not to listen and just go ahead with the insanity. You want to know the thing that upsets me the worst? This is the most elitist garbage I've ever seen in my life. The Seattle Times had a headline yesterday. How do you afford to live in Washington? Tell us your stories. You guys endorsed the Democrats who made it unaffordable. You guys endorsed a lot of these taxes. You guys supported this insanity. Tell us your stories, peasant. We want to hear from you. How do you afford to live here in Washington? Hey, Seattle Times, how do you afford to exist anymore? Oh, right. You get grants from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and whatever other partisan hacks you can possibly find. I don't get grants from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And you, the words I want to use, but I can't because I'm on air. You people over there at the Seattle Times advocated for another tax this year to fund your failing newspaper. Oh, peasants, tell us your stories. Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Lord Farquaad's, all of them. That's the Seattle Times, and that really, really ticks me off. I mean, this article is so out of step, so tone deaf, just really ticks me off. You know what else ticks me off? All that money they taxed us for the light rail, and now it looks like they're not even going to be building big sections of it. Oh, sure, they could have their grand opening, but that's about the end of the line for the light rail. We'll tell you what's up when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder for everybody who is worried about the podcast, they are back up and running on Spotify, Apple, whatever your preferred podcast platform is. So make sure you head on over there, subscribe, rate, and share, so that way you and your friends never miss a minute of the show. You can also download the KVI app and listen to KVI.com. I just put up a whole bunch of new articles that we haven't talked about yet on the show. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Les and Alan. Les, what's up?
Not too much. I got to swallow salt and vinegar potato chip. But anyway, you was asking what it's going to take for me to leave, and I ain't leaving. I'm fighting.
Good, awesome. Have you gone to Let's Go Washington's website yet to sign up?
It's on the way. Yes.
Fantastic. And, so yeah, make sure you head on over there and sign up to get the sheets.
I want to do, but what the other thing is you were talking about what's it take to stay here, and I'm kind of bothered by all those that are leaving, though I really understand it, especially how much it costs for people, especially young people just trying to get started.
Yeah.
How much it costs for them to get going. It's horrible. But I've been here for a long time, and my house is paid for, and I hate to say that because now the Democrats are going to figure out another way to tax me more.
That's what
they
do.
Already have.
That's what they do best. Yeah. I mean, just wait till this tax kicks in on everybody, not just the wealthy. Les, remember, head on over to Let's Go Washington's website. That's letsgowa.org. Make sure while you're there, you sign up and get the sheets. So that way, when the referendum sheets are sent out, you get a copy of them, give them a donation if you can while you're there, and they're looking for volunteers also. Les, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Do you remember back in the early days of the Ari Hoffman Show, back when we were at Como Plaza? So my studio, for those of you who don't know, looked out over the monorail. And I came in one morning to this awful, awful news story. And the story was some kid who was a tagger, that's somebody who does graffiti, got hit and killed by the the monorail, because they were up there trying to graffiti the monorail. And I called that the Darwin Award. Because what was the stupid kid doing up there in the first place? Shouldn't have been doing it. Where were the parents? I mean, he's not a victim. He caused this mess himself. You're not supposed to be standing on the monorail tracks. For those of you who don't know, it's an elevated track running through downtown Seattle. So you got to be creative to get up there. So this dumb kid wanted to tag it because he wanted to mark his territory or get a picture. This kid was a prolific tagger, and that's their shtick. The reason you see these taggings on the overpasses or wherever it is, because it's a point of pride. Look what I managed to graffiti. Well, today's Darwin Award goes to the person who was taken to Harborview Medical Center late Wednesday after falling from an overpass onto I-90 in Bellevue, according to the Washington State Patrol. They said the fall happened around 10:30 p.m. on the ramp from eastbound I-90 to Bellevue Way. The person was allegedly graffiti tagging on the overpass when they fell onto the ramp below. The tagger was taken to Harborview Medical with a possible broken leg and facial injuries. No details were provided on whether the victim would be facing charges of vandalism. Well, I think at the very minimum, they should be on the hook for all the payments due to being hauled to the hospital. Like, I don't think insurance should cover any of this. I don't think insurance should cover this at all. No, I think this should be 100% on the moron. I think if you're an idiot, you void your insurance. We'll just put that out there for a second. If you are in the middle of committing a crime, your insurance shouldn't pay for that. You should be on the hook, though I assume that a tagger doesn't really have a lot of money to pay for any of this kind of stuff. So jail time. That's right, jail time. That's what we want. Meanwhile, switching gears over to this story here. So it wasn't the monorail that this person was vandalizing, and it wasn't even the light rail, but now you have this beautiful, brand spanking new light rail which heads on out to the east side. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that fantastic? It looked very sunny the other day. People look so happy. Yeah, but all the opening day ceremonies kind of reminded a whole bunch of people in Ballard and Tacoma and West Seattle. Hey, when's that light rail coming? Because that ST3, Sound Transit 3, that tax that everybody paid for, that took a lot of money. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in car tab fees and property taxes, you name it. So when's our light rail coming? Because I want to have a big opening ceremony, and I want to ride the light. Oh, it's not happening? Oh, it's not happening. So, Sound Transit, is so over budget and so behind schedule that they may just say, sorry, didn't do it. Or you know what they're going to do? They're going to raise our taxes because an unelectable Sound Transit board can never come in on time or on budget. They're just going to raise our taxes to pay for these things. So you've got Dan Strauss, who represents Ballard. He wants his moment of in the sun. He wants to stand there next to the governor and be photographed with the light rail going out to Ballard. Yeah, that ain't going to happen. What about the mayor of Tacoma? What about the city council of Tacoma? Isn't that sucker supposed to be going to the Tacoma Dome? So that way you can go Sunday to the monster truck rally and see Grave Digger and Bone Crusher and all the other ones. Yeah, you don't get to take mass transit out on Sunday.
I heard they'll sell you the whole seat, but you only need the edge.
There you go. Hey, I like the monster truck rallies. I enjoy that. They don't crush cars anymore. That's what I wanted to go to.
They don't?
See that. No, they just spin around in circles and race each other and do flips.
They do I know they do like the flips and they do like the wheel stands.
I don't see that.
And whatnot.
Apparently that's some other derby they do. I was really disappointed the first time I went because I thought they were all one derby. But what do I know from this?
I know the kids really enjoy it.
Kids do enjoy it. I took my kids. I even took my daughter, and she loved that kind of stuff. I took my nephew. We had a great time. But you're not going to be taking the light rail to get there. And here's the problem. Is that Sound Transit overpromised and underdelivered. And they just reminded everybody of it. So now Tacoma's like, hey, dudes, you promised us. West Seattle, hey, dudes, you promised us. Ballard, hey, dudes, you promised us. You know what this really means? You think they're going to stop building the dumb train? No. It means now what they're going to do is tax you more to pay for their stupidity and tax you for the rest of your life. What, they said this whole thing was scheduled to be done by, 2040 or something like that? I don't think that's happening no more. All right, what comes first, okay? The apocalypse or the Sound Transit actually making good on any of their promises? Yeah, everybody's mad about this right now. Everybody's mad because this thing was supposed to go all the way to the Tacoma Dome. It was supposed to go to West Seattle. It was supposed to go to Ballard. And at the time I said, how are you going to do that? Really? That's not going to happen. And also, their own stupidity. I mean, they had to pull up the tracks on the I-90 bridge how many times? They found out it couldn't support the weight how many times? How many other issues did they have? And let's not forget the story we did on Monday, where right after they opened this sucker, Mercer Island, for those of you who don't live around here, nice, affluent place. It's where all the rich people live. In one day, they had 4 issues with vagrants at the light rail station. We had 2 of them the other day. There were 2 more. One guy on Fetty, one guy on Fetty, one guy knocked out on the floor on God knows what, you name it. And then people are sending me pictures of Bellevue, where now when you get off the light rail, so you know they have that police unit. Well, apparently they're not catching everybody because now when you get off the light rail, there's people panhandling in Bellevue, which is another high-end affluent neighborhood because light rail moves crime along the rail. Do you think they're ever actually going to finish this light rail project, or you think they're just going to charge you more money to get it done? I just want to put this out here for a second. What if they had done the whole thing with electric buses? Think of how much cheaper that would have been. But no, they wanted their train. And look how much money it cost all of us. While we're getting self-driving cars, by the way, at the same time. So what do you think? Do you think they're never going to finish this thing, or you think they're going to tax you more to finish it? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And with the crime being moved by rail, is it going to be safe for you to go to the World Cup? Well, luckily, the State Department's in charge of that, not Katie Wilson. And joining us next, somebody from the Trump administration who's going to give us all the details on how they're working to keep you safe when Iran and Egypt come to town. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, my friends, the World Cup is around the corner, and Seattle's projected to host over 750,000 visitors during the soccer tournament. And right now, it looks like Socialist Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson is trying her absolute best to make sure that this thing isn't going anywhere. What happens after that is an entirely different discussion. But the question is, are we good to go around here? Joining us now from the U.S. State Department, Deputy Spokesperson Manon Houston, thank you so much for being with us today.
So great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. So how are we vetting the international fans that are coming to this thing?
I want your listeners to know, and I want to be clear here, that the Department of State, working alongside our partners throughout the government, are really taking a whole-of-government approach to ensure this is not only one of the most memorable World Cups, but one of the safest and the most secure. This is a commitment by this leadership, by President Trump himself, to ensure the safety and security of American citizens is our top priority. We are working in ensuring that the vetting system for any individual interested in coming to the United States in need of a visa is rigorous, is robust. We are using the highest standards of vetting to ensure that everyone who comes here has gone through a process that ensures that they have good intentions, safe intentions, and that they will use this visa appropriately. We're also working across the board with local law enforcement, federal law enforcement. Look, we've been preparing for FIFA for more than a year now, working with Department of Homeland Security, FBI, local and state law enforcement officials. We are well prepared and well ready to accept what we are expecting to be anywhere from 5 to 7 million people coming to the United States for the World Cup. We know this is going to be what the president has called a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but it's also going to be secure and safe because of the leadership of this administration.
That's good to hear because there's a lot of local, I want to say, grandstanding about going head-to-head with the administration, but it sounds like things are well in hand and everybody who should be cooperating is cooperating. Is that your read of the situation?
I mean, absolutely. What we're hearing, the White House has had a task force for the World Cup. We are meeting the demand by ensuring that we're going to have vigorous, really rigorous standard set for these visas, but also that we are working closely across the government. We have several task force set up around all of the different 11 host cities. They're working together in tandem with the U.S. government. We're deploying federal coordination teams in these 11 host cities to make sure we have good coordination. Our goal and our objective is to ensure that every American citizen feels confident, comfortable, that they can enjoy the games without any worry, that they know that this administration is going to defend U.S. national security, defend their personal security, and make sure this World Cup is just really going to be a historic moment in sports history.
We're talking with U.S. Department of State Deputy Spokesperson Manon Houston. Thank you so much for being with us. Now, what can we expect about the visitors? I mean, the traffic's going to be bad, but can we expect them to follow all U.S. laws and customs while they're here?
Well, that's a great question, and it's part of our visa process. When we are looking at every individual who's interested in a visa to come to the United States, we're asking those tough questions. We have very well-trained consular officers. We're deploying up to 600 more additional consular staff to meet the high demand that we're expecting to receive for the World Cup. They're out there in the field. They're looking to make sure they're looking at all types of tools, very, very rigorous tools to make sure that every individual is going to have good intentions. We're looking at their history. We're listening to their interviews. We want to ensure that when they come to the United States, not only are they following our visa laws, U.S. immigration laws, but local, state laws as well, that they will respect U.S. immigration. They'll return home based on the dates that are necessary to respect their visa category. And so we are making sure that Americans feel safe, that they feel confident. There's no way this president would put his name on anything. It's because of this administration. During his first term, the president really was responsible for securing the bid to host FIFA World Cup. And so you can rest assured that with the president's name behind this, this is going to be a secure and safe FIFA World Cup.
In the last few minutes we have with U.S. Department of State Deputy Spokesperson Manon Houston, and I have a lot more confidence in you than I do with local leadership. So this is really good to hear because people like me were a little worried about this. Tell us what the FIFA Pass is, this priority visa program for people who are coming here.
Absolutely. And so essentially, when an individual is interested in a visa, they have to they're looking through a system to get an appointment for that visa interview. Well, we know that there'll be a large number of people who are legitimate travelers. They have a FIFA World Cup 2026 ticket, and they want to make sure they can get that appointment in time to make it to the games this summer. And so this is the administration's really novel approach to give these individuals an opportunity to get that appointment in enough time. So it's called the FIFA Priority Appointment Scheduling System. It's the first time we've had something like this for FIFA. This is really a novel approach to get them that visa appointment. Look, we are expecting, like I said, 5 to 7 million people coming to the United States. We know that it will generate billions of dollars for our economy. FIFA and the World Trade Organization are estimating it could create upwards to 180,000 new jobs across the United States. The United States will be the host for the majority of these matches, more matches than ever before, more games than ever before. It's going to be an epic event. But because of the leadership of this administration, it is going to be safe. We can rest assured that that is a priority. The State Department is working very closely with the White House and our government partners, and we're going to put our name on it. This is going to be a safe, secure, and memorable World Cup.
I really appreciate you joining us today because there's a lot of concern around here for people who know how the city and the state are normally run. So it gives us a little bit more confidence knowing that the Trump administration, that the State Department are the ones who are vetting everybody who's coming here for the World Cup. U.S. Department of State Deputy Spokesperson Manon Houston, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues, including, are we going back to the moon? Give you all the details up next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, it looks like a lot of you want to weigh in on my question I asked before the interview. Do you think that Sound Transit's just going to stop, or you think they're just going to tax us until they're done with it? This one here from Lance. Come on, Ari. Why would you even question that? Of course it's going to be more taxes. That seems to be the consensus around here. This one from the 360. I don't believe Dow's Sound Transit light rail will ever get done. Look how King County turned out while Dow was there. Exactly right. This is the consensus over on the text line. But my favorite one here is from Jeff and Kent. The sun will burn out before Sound Transit will be finished. Go see that Hail Mary movie, by the way. Speaking of things in our orbit, this Artemis stuff is awesome. I know some people go, why do we bother funding this kind of stuff? You know, a lot of the technology you use today is as a result of the Apollo missions. Yeah, Velcro. But also a lot of the communications technology we have. And we haven't done this stuff in a while. One, it fires up the imagination. But two, the technological advances you get from doing this kind of stuff is pretty awesome. I don't know if you saw the launch. I had the TVs on mute in here, watching it as the show was going on. According to Fox News, the Artemis II crew launched into history books Wednesday, blasting off aboard NASA's Orion spacecraft on a mission around the moon, the first crewed journey beyond low Earth orbit in more than 50 years. I love this kind of stuff. I really do. Tell me if you like this stuff as much as I do, because I'm a sci-fi nerd. So Artemis is going to have 3 missions. That's the plan. The first one is around the moon, which goes farther out. That's kind of like a prelude to the Mars stuff, which is coming way, way, way later. But it goes around the moon farther than anybody's gone in history before, and then comes back to Earth. The next one has to test the technology of the new lunar lander to make sure they can couple it together in space and then come back to Earth. And then the last one is going to go to the moon, land on the moon, but not just walk around and do flags and footprints and moon rocks. No, they have a new plan. A moon base. That's right. There's going to be a base on the moon. Is it going to be an evil moon base? Because that's what it sounds like to me. That's what they're building after this. Now, this is just like the Apollo missions, because remember with the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo missions, each one of them were trying to do different things to eventually get to the moon. First, you had to prove you could get into space. Then you had to prove you could orbit the Earth. Then you had to orbit the Earth a few more times. Then you had to prove you could link up to something else in space. Then you had to prove you could actually get out past the moon. Then that this lunar lander would get close to the moon. In fact, I heard this, that the lunar lander, the first time when they were just trying to make sure the thing worked, they didn't give them enough gas to actually land on the moon because they wouldn't have enough gas to get home if they actually landed on the moon, because they're like, that's not your turn. That's Neil's job. Neil comes later. But anywho, I love this kind of stuff. It fires up the imagination. It really, really does. Reminds me of a story. So years ago, my family went to Washington, D.C., and I had a friend who was working for the Smithsonian at the time, and he's an archaeologist, but he does artifact preservation. That's his shtick. So we went out to the other flight museum, not the main one on the mall. We go out to the one out near the airport, which has the Enola Gay, the plane that dropped the atomic bomb. It has a space shuttle out there. It's got all this fun stuff. He said, why don't you come visit me? That's where the artifact restoration is. Come on out there. And while you're out there, I'll show you the lab, and you can look at all the stuff in the lab. Pretty cool. Kids are little, very exciting. So we go into the lab, and he says, okay, guys, there's things you can touch and things you can't touch. So we'll just show you everything. So we walk on over to a hatch, and he goes, oh, what's this from? Let me take a look, because they were doing all this restoration from the main exhibits over at the Air and Space Museum. And you look at the hatch, and it goes, Apollo 11. Oh, this is Apollo 11. This is Apollo 11's hatch being restored right there in front of us. Amazing. Touch it. Look at it. Isn't it cool? Touch it. We're restoring. We'll clean it up afterwards. We'll get rid of the fingerprints. Don't smudge it. Cool. Then he goes, all right, let's go over here. Oh, it's an Apollo era spacesuit. Whose spacesuit is this? Hang on, there's a name tag. Let me just, Aldrin. Buzz Aldrin's spacesuit. Right there. Touch it. Feel it. Look at it. We're fixing it up for the exhibit. Fantastic. Takes us to all the stuff. You can touch everything. There was one thing you could not touch in that entire laboratory. Do you know what it was? It was the model of the USS Enterprise from the original Star Trek. It's roped off. You can't go near. No pictures, no touching.
I was going to say that thing's probably so brittle, it's probably almost basically dust.
Yeah, but what I love is the prop from the TV
is
show.
more important than. Yeah.
Let the little kids touch the spacesuits that actually went to the moon and whatever. But, you don't get to touch
because
the model.
At least those things are made for use, right? Like the stupid model is made to sit there and be filmed. So that thing is like, it's basically like
cardboard
barely
or whatever
holding
it
together
is.
at this point.
Yeah, they restored the whole thing. It was fascinating. We saw it with its guts ripped out. So none of the lights were in it. It was in pieces when we saw it, but it was still pretty awesome. That's a life experience. I got to go back and find the pictures. I have them somewhere. I never post them to socials. It's been like 10, 15 years, right? I'm not going to get my buddy in trouble. They're not going to know who snuck me into the lab now. I could totally post those pictures on social media now. I should find that because that's as close to the moon as I'm ever getting. Yeah, Katy Perry, not an astronaut. These guys, actual astronauts. Bill Shatner, you ain't no astronaut, my man. These people going out there, actual astronauts. Pretty awesome stuff. Up next, the president is addressing the nation tonight, and we have a preview of what he's going to say on Iran. We'll give you that, plus a whole lot more when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the chair of the RNC joins us for a preview of the speech and what we're looking at come the midterms. But before we get to any of that, a little peek behind the curtain of the show for you. Sometimes when I'm putting the show together, I go, if I say this, if I talk about this, the phone lines are going to explode, the text lines are going to explode, and it happens. Sometimes I say that, and they don't care about that. They care about something else that I never thought would have set off the text lines or the phone lines. And today, it is the Artemis mission. Look, there is space fever. There is moon fever. And that is what everybody wants to talk about here. So we got this question from the 206. Ari, what makes orbits around the moon in 2026 different from Apollo missions that did the same? Local Fox 13 Morning News reported this is the first ever deep space mission. Okay, it's not deep space. They're not leaving the solar system. But what they are doing is they are going further past the moon. It's not just moon orbit. It's how much further past the moon can they go. And this is going to be a historical thing every time. Oh, now we went further. Now we went further. Now we went further. Now we got to Mars. Now we went further. Now we went further. And sooner or later, they're going to eventually leave the solar system and go wherever they go. This one here, Jeremy in Tacoma, I wonder if as they go around the moon, they shoot a homing beacon into the moon so they can use drones to send supplies to the beacon for building a base there. I don't know. That is a great question. I actually put in a request during the commercial break to have somebody from NASA come on the show next week because I want to talk to them about little things like that. So, Jeremy, I will ask them that question. This one here from the 302. Are the Jewish space lasers going to defend the moon base? Well, actually, we already have somebody who's operating the lasers for us.
Begin laser ignition!
So, Frau Tharbissina is going to fire the Jewish space lasers for us. That's right. We got that covered. That's right. Don't mess with me or else you get the Jewish space laser. This one here from Robin Lakewood. Sound Transit going to try to expand Gavin's train to nowhere. Wait a second. Oh, my God. Space laser, Sound Transit. I saw an announcement today that Sound Transit says it plans on making a train to the moon. They're working out how to do it. All they need to do is tax your car tabs more, and they'll be able to pay for the space train. They're going to do the space train to the moon. Yeah, if we find life on Mars. Somehow the Democrats are going to want to give them aid. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Jim in Snohomish. Jim, what's going on?
Howdy, sir. How are you?
Good. What's going on, man?
Good. So all those missions to the moon, my grandfather worked for Lockheed and Skunk Works through that period. So I have all those documents going to the moon, daily surveyor missions, daily Apollo missions, all those documents that document all that stuff from back in the time that, you know, we're all talking about the Apollo missions and stuff like that. Yeah, those he handed those down to me years and years and decades ago. And it's like, this is the coolest stuff ever that we're going back.
That's amazing. You know, we have a space buff here in the studio who is Young Zach. Young Zach collects space memorabilia. In fact, I'm sure he'd love to take a look at what you got. They found Neil Armstrong's spacesuit in his closet when he died. I think his wife found it and then donated it to the Smithsonian. We don't know where all this stuff is. Zach's got little knickknacks and trinkets and pieces of space shuttles and stuff from Apollo. He's got stuff from everything sitting around his desk in the office. It's really cool, actually.
Well, this stuff here is Apollo missions, surveyor missions, Mariner missions, Mariner Perspectives books, surveyor missions of the moon, both of the moon, dark side and near side, and then Mariner out to Mars. They were documented, and then all the spacewalks and stuff like that, and everything else. And then when I was in 8th grade, we actually had my 8th grade teacher was friends with Christy on the space shuttle, and we had experiments on the space shuttle when it blew up.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, I remember my grandfather was a ham radio operator. He loved that stuff. I was training to do it for a while, but kind of lost interest. But actually, I remember one time we actually spoke to the guys on the space shuttle, which was pretty awesome. NASA had this specific time that amateur radio operators could call in and talk to the space shuttle. That was awesome.
Yeah, no, that's cool stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, just all this talk about the going Artemis and everything else, and I'm like going, I got all this stuff at home that's just part of this big old program that started then and is continuing now. It's the coolest stuff on the face of the planet.
That's awesome. Jim, thanks for sharing that with me. I love when we get to do good stuff around here and not all the doom and gloom. Thanks so much for being part of the show today. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And speaking of good stuff, it looks like President Trump is going to announce mission accomplished when it comes to Iran tonight. Now, the White House put this up because the Democrats love to say there was no clear objective on Iran. These are the objectives: destroy Iran's missile arsenal, annihilate their navy, destroy their terror proxies, ensure Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Well, how'd we do in that regard? How'd we do on any of that? Well, before I get to that, for the people who said there were never any clear objectives, this was President Trump the first day when we bombed Iran.
For almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out. And they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You've got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is.
That was a month ago. Those were the objectives. And in fact, that's what everybody in the administration said were the objectives. Here's the vice president a month ago.
You know, in a perfect world, yeah, we would love it if somebody came to power in Iran who was willing to work with the United States, who was willing to show some respect to the United States, and again, most importantly, made that long-term commitment that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. But ultimately, Jesse, whatever happens with the regime in one form or another, it's incidental to the president's primary objective here, which is to make sure the Iranian terrorist regime does not build a nuclear bomb. So, you know, there are a lot of things that could happen with the regime. Obviously, the president and I would prefer that you have a friendly regime in Iran, a stable country, a country that's willing to work with the United States as opposed to, you know, bomb our soldiers and try to build a nuclear weapon. But fundamentally, so long as we achieve the president's objective to make it clear that Iran can't build the bomb, I think the president will be happy with the outcome.
Okay, so president, vice president, been in sync since day one. What has Marco Rubio said? And this was the day after we bombed Iran.
The United States conducted this operation with a very clear goal in mind. I haven't got a chance to see a lot of reporting. I don't understand what the confusion is. Let me explain it to you, and I'll do it once again as clearly as possible. Perhaps you'll report it that way. The United States is conducting an operation to eliminate the threat of Iran's short-range ballistic missiles and the threat posed by their Navy, particularly to naval assets. That is what it is focused on doing right now, and it's doing quite successfully. I'll leave it to the Pentagon and the Department of War to discuss the tactics behind that and the progress that's being made. That is the clear objective of this mission. The second question that's been asked is, why now? Well, there's two reasons why now. The first is it was abundantly clear that if Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true because, in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Same goals. Same goals. All right. That was the Secretary of State. What about the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth?
As I said Monday, the mission is laser-focused. Obliterate Iran's missiles and drones and facilities that produce them, annihilate its Navy and critical security infrastructure, and sever their pathway to nuclear weapons. Iran will never possess a nuclear bomb, not on our watch, not ever.
See, that's how you know he's a TV guy and a military guy. Succinct, got a time limit, gets it out there quickly. Well done, Pete Hegseth. What about the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Raisin Kane? What do you have to say?
The operation was again launched with clear military objectives designed to dismantle Iran's ability to project power outside of its borders, both today and in the future. First, we are targeting and eliminating Iran's ballistic missile systems to prevent them from threatening the U.S. Forces, partners, and interests in the region. Second, we are destroying the Iranian Navy, degrading its capacity, capability, and ability to conduct operations, not just in the Central Command AOR, but as the Secretary showed in the video, around the world. Third, we're ensuring Iran cannot rapidly rebuild or reconstitute its combat capability or combat power, and those phases will begin as the campaign continues.
Same goals from day one. In fact, it goes back longer than that. Goes back, about 45 years, because here's President Trump in the early 1980s saying the exact same thing.
When you get the respect of the other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point. That they hold our hostages is just absolutely and totally ridiculous. That this country sits back and allows a country such as Iran to hold our hostages, to my way of thinking, is a horror. And I don't think they'd do it with other countries. I honestly don't think they'd do it with other countries.
Obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, etc., and brought our boys out.
I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, and there's no question in my mind. I think right now would be an oil-rich nation, and I believe that we should have done it, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't do it, and I don't think anybody would have held us in abeyance. I don't think anybody would have been angry with us, and we had every right to do it at the time. I think we've lost the opportunity.
Now, the president is going to be addressing the nation at 6 o'clock. So right after we're done today, that's when you can flip over and listen to the president's speech. You don't have to miss any part of the show today. We're going to be live until 6, and the president is speaking afterwards today. So you're good to go there. After good news today, then you can listen to the president's speech.
Yeah, but I would suggest going over to our sister station.
I was about to do that. I was about to say, you can catch it on our sister station, Northwest News Radio, AM 1000 or 97.7. Yep, 97.7 FM. If you want to catch the president's address, they will be carrying it live. Now, I'll say this also. Do you think it's mission accomplished? Now, for me, my thing is I don't think we're done yet. And the reason I say that is because the regime hasn't totally surrendered, because that's what we wanted from day one. In fact, President Trump said the exact same thing himself. That's the fifth objective, which hasn't been done yet. And if we don't get the Strait of Hormuz open, now, mind you, Iran is begging for a ceasefire right now, begging for a ceasefire. But Iran loves this kind of stuff because then they can stall. And they're thinking they can wait out President Trump and get to the next guy. Now, I want a total surrender because there's economic concerns here as well. In fact, CEO of JP Morgan Chase said this morning on Fox and Friends about Iran.
I think the market, look, the markets are unpredictable, and it's hard for me to tell you exactly what, but I think they're just looking at, is there a chance something can go wrong? Now, we should all hope nothing goes wrong. We should all hope that these bad people are, that we win this thing and clean up the straits and that Iran is no longer a threat to everybody. And but the markets will be concerned until it's over. But I think it's very important. It's much more important that this be successfully completed than what the market does.
And that sounds like what the UAE and Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states are saying.
Yeah.
Finish this off the right way. They see the urgency here.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yes. I mean, I hear some people say, they weren't an imminent threat. A threat means I'm threatening you, I might do something bad. These people have been doing something bad for 47 years. They've been killing people. They've been killing Americans. They funded that terrible Hamas thing. Several Americans were killed on October 7th. And so they've had proxy wars. They've been threatening people. I think people are surprised to find out that had a ballistic missile and go 3,000 miles. These are bad people, and they needed to be stopped. And just
Exactly right. Exactly right. Now, I hope this isn't a George Bush moment. Mission accomplished, land on the aircraft carrier, and it drags on and on and on. I hope that's not this kind of moment. Because, look, I mean, we had the ceasefire from October 7th back in October. Basically 3 years to the day. And the last time I was in Israel, you still hear artillery going because Hamas keeps popping up. That's the problem with these terrorist insurgencies. They keep popping up. If the Strait of Hormuz is open, you're going to see gas prices fall through the floor. If Saudi Arabia or the Emirates are now in charge of the oil, you're going to see prices fall through the floor. If the U.S. is in charge of the oil, you're going to see prices fall through the floor. And I hope that's what we're looking at. But I don't want to leave a job unfinished. I don't want to leave a job undone. Let me know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Carol in Indiana. Carol, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you all doing?
Oh, I'm just peachy. Thank you. What's going on?
I have held my tongue about as long as I can, and I have yet to hear anybody mention the Iran-Contra affair. Is that something that I just dreamed up, or did that actually happen?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that was not a great moment. And in fact, on the show many times, we've discussed how the U.S. helped the Mujahideen, who ended up becoming Al-Qaeda. And we haven't helped a lot of people before. I'm not suggesting we help this regime. I'm suggesting we eliminate this regime.
Oh, yeah. And I'm blow them from the planet is what I'm saying. But they have the weapons because we sold them. Our government gave them to, we're responsible for that.
Well, hang on a second. To be clear, the weapons they have now are not those weapons. I mean, some of the planes, they're pretty old and they don't exist anymore. But now a lot of the weapons they have were paid for by American taxpayer dollars because Barack Obama decided it was a good idea to give the regime billions of dollars in the dark of night in unmarked bills, basically like it's a mobster movie. Then you had Joe Biden come along and release sanctions on him, thinking, let's just do this. Let's pay him off because that worked out so well for Bill Clinton in the 1990s with North Korea, right?
Right. And I mean, people can say what they want about Trump. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. And 47 years, we have waited for somebody to do this. And I really think that they need to finish it.
Yeah, I'm with you, Carol. That's what I think. I don't think we should stop till we're done. But the question is, what is the president going to announce tonight? Is he going to announce we've accomplished these objectives? Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates go finish up the job? Because I'm fine with that. I am really fine with that, and I'm the guy who wants them blown to hell probably more than anybody else after October 7th. I'll tell you that, Carol. I mean, I want these guys wiped from the planet in the dustbin of I don't even want them in the dustbin of history because that means they still exist in a landfill somewhere. I want them gone. I mean, completely gone. But the question is...
They're a whole nother...
Right.
At what point... I mean, you can't...
At what point do we
trust
let
what
the
they're gonna
Middle
say.
East take care of the Middle East, where Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates and everybody else around there in the Abraham Accords goes and deals with this, right?
Correct, because I mean, Israel, if they want to keep picking a fight, they're going to have to get their asses kicked. I mean, they're not going to keep coming, going to Iran and saying, "Oh my God, we're not going to be able to do it." I'm not trying to make anybody mad, and I'm not against really anybody, but Iran can say what they want. They can't be trusted, and yeah, it's time to be done with it. The Shah of Iran is gone, long gone. He's not coming back, and they're radicalists. But if you want to really go back to the Crusades, I mean, you have to look at both sides of it, and it's no wonder that they hate us so much, because I think that's where that stems from. It's thousands of years.
Nah. I'll tell you what, Carol, they hated us long before the Crusades. What they don't like is anybody who doesn't want to submit to their Sharia rule, to their law. It's long before the Crusades. I'm not going to say the Crusades didn't play a part, but I think nowadays you got a whole different monster, a whole different animal you're dealing with, which is just you don't submit to Allah's will, we want you dead. That's what it is.
Well, they're praying to the wrong God.
Carol, I appreciate the call. How are you listening to us out in Indiana?
It's 570 Talk Radio. You guys rock.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Up next, my friends, we are going to give you more about the speech. But in addition to that, we also have a story about how you can never be left enough for the far left. That's right. Latest example right here in Washington State. Plus more of your calls, more of your texts during the final hour of Free For All. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just want to remind everybody the podcasts are up and running again. Don't know if we were being shadow banned. Don't know if it was a tech glitch, but whatever the case may be, we are back up to full power. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast at whatever your preferred podcast platform is. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's going on, man?
What's going on is, President Trump did something really good, and he authorized our brave military to punish Iran for all their years of warmongering and killing their own citizens. And even though I didn't vote for Donald Trump, I have to call in once again to thank the president for, at a bare minimum, bombing scumbags who shoot protesters.
Well, I'll tell you what, Joe, because you have a change of heart regarding the president, you get the special music today. Congratulations. You are now an adjacent member of MAGA. It's okay. We're giving you the little blessing.
No. America's already great. America's already great.
Joe, you get the music, though. Not everybody gets the music. You listen every day. You know that. Not everybody gets the music. But it's good that you can be honest and say, this I like, this I don't like, and there's not enough of that. And it's great that you call and have a discussion. By the way, I did get your emails about going on Sound Transit with you. I have to check the dates with my wife and my daughter. So I will get back to you right after Passover, okay?
Yeah, I'm thinking we could do it the same day as Sound Transit board meeting, and maybe you could, that way you could spout off a bit to make history, man, because, speaking of things to go to, I'm also happy that President Trump went to a court hearing, because I would like to see all of our politicians sign a simple promise to attend one court hearing a year.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they should go check that stuff out, but they don't want to, they don't want to mingle with the common folk. Joe, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show? Give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Forrest Cat has a question over on the text line. He says, Ari, did Obama give Iran American tax dollars, or did he release Iran's own money that had been seized and frozen? I'm hearing conflicting reports about that. Someone is mistaken or someone is intentionally misleading about that. Please clarify. Well, Forrest, they did both. They literally did both. One, it was sanction relief. Two, it was unfreezing assets. Three, it was, if we give you a bunch of money, will you not build a bomb? And literally gave them pallets of cash in the middle of the night. That actually happened. So it's not that you're hearing conflicting things, it's that people are choosing to focus on certain things. Yes, Obama was that bad that he did all of them. Joe Biden, on the other hand, Joe Biden relieved sanctions pretty often and gave them money and unfroze assets. So it was just Obama term 3, which is basically what that was. Meanwhile, there was this back and forth over on Bill Maher the other day. And what's funny is this very innocent back and forth ticked off the activists. Give a listen.
What do you make of more Democrats distancing themselves from AIPAC, that is the Israeli lobby? I think everyone who's running for president, although none of them say they are, but they're all the ones who are, including the 2 Jewish ones, have distanced. That's where Jews are with the Democratic Party these days. Has it become toxic to support Israel? I think it has for the Democrats.
I think it has. The question is it right?
It's not.
I don't think it is.
No, it isn't.
I don't think it is. And I think that what you're having right now is a lot of people, when we saw what we saw on college campuses, what have you, and a lot of people, engaging in anti-Semitism, let's just call it what it is, that definitely becomes incredibly alarming. But I also think that there's a lot of people out there that got an issue with Benjamin Netanyahu specifically. And unfortunately, they keep castigating the entire Jewish community when they're not realizing there are an abundance of people within the Jewish community that have a problem with his leadership. And they're not differentiating between the two, and that's problematic.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. I think it's a much bigger issue than that. I think when you're a Democrat and you don't take money from AIPAC, which they have forever, what you're saying is Israel is a monster country and this is dirty. It's a dirty country and this is dirty money. And that gives permission to a lot of people who are actually anti-Semitic to say, well, you know what, if a Democratic senator won't take their money, this must be a dirty country.
Let's also remember as well that you've got a lot of people that felt like, they're taking this position that Trump was wrong to go after Iran or what have you, but practically every president before him complained about Iran and how Iran needed to be dealt with. But then all of a sudden he doesn't, and it's a big problem. Now, I'm not saying that he's handled it entirely correctly. Please don't get me wrong, because he hasn't. But the flip side to it is that you got a lot of damn nerves to be in the face of American people saying for numerous administrations, Iran is a problem. They have to be dealt with. Iran's a problem. They have to be dealt with. And then this man deals with them, and then all of a sudden you're complaining about him now.
Okay, why'd I play that clip? There's a lot of incorrect information in there. First of all, AIPAC didn't actually give anybody money until the last couple of election cycles. You know what AIPAC used to do? There weren't even a PAC. AIPAC would take you on trips to Israel. Hey, look at the kibbutz. Hey, grab some shawarma. That's what AIPAC used to do. So nobody on that panel knows what the hell they're talking about. In fact, the way I found this out when I was running for office, I'm like, all right, let's get the Jewish money because I'm Jewish. This is a surefire thing. I call AIPAC. And they go, that's not what we do. I'm like, wait, what? You don't give out money to candidates? No. We just kind of take them on trips to Israel and educate them about Israel and invite them for Passover Seder and all that. But Senator Alyssa Slotkin was sitting there during all that and having a discussion on this. And now CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations, is demanding she apologize for appearing on Real Time with Bill Maher because of the host's long history of anti-Muslim bigotry and anti-Arab racism. Why are they even bothering to issue this? Because they think she will cave. Because she's one of the ones who goes, I'm not taking the AIPAC money. I don't want them to help me in the race, just like Bill Maher was talking about. And they're saying, we can push her. We can push her more. How much more can we push her? That's what it is. Nothing's ever good enough. That was a conversation that was critical of Israel. That was critical of Israel. It's critical of the U.S. Had some interesting points. I don't say I agree with them, but nothing's ever good enough for these radicals. Until you are chanting Allahu Akbar while praying in Mecca, it's not good enough for them. It's not. You can never make the radical Islamists happy. Never, ever, ever. Because even if you bow and pray at Mecca, and even if you say Allahu Akbar, they're still not going to like you because you're the wrong skin type, because you're not pure blood from that race. Yes, my friends, that's what it is. It's crazy to me the far left associates with a group of people who are so discriminatory. When we come back, my friends, the RNC chair is going to join us with a preview of President Trump's speech, plus also going to let us know how it's looking for the midterms. We'll give you all details and have that conversation for you next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. With it being such a busy day today in the other Washington, we are so happy that joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line is the chairman of the Republican National Committee, Joe Gruters. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
I really appreciate you taking the time out, especially when so much is going on. But a lot of this is tied to who can vote and who can't vote. I mean, we've got what's going on in the Supreme Court right now. We're probably not going to get a decision on that until June. Right now, based on the questions that a lot of the justices were asking, it doesn't look very promising for the president's case, even though I happen to agree with it. But we have right now that Congress is actually having in front of them the Save America Act. What are your thoughts on that moving forward right now?
Well, listen, the overwhelming majority of Americans are in favor of it. I think we're at 84%, so Republicans, Independents, Democrats. Democrats are not, and the basic premise is Democrats care more about illegals than the Americans. And just go back to the State of the Union for a second, when the President Trump said the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens, and nearly every Democrat at the State of the Union shamefully refused to stand. And this Save America Act is common sense, it's reasonableness, and the Democrats should be ashamed of themselves because they're standing up for illegal immigrants because they're trying to grasp their hold of power as long as they can, and they think that when they allowed tens of millions of illegals to flood our borders and to now potentially give them pathways to vote, that the American public is going to be in favor of that. They're not. They're the only ones. These elitists in D.C. are the only ones that are trying to preserve some of these things. Listen, when the president asked me to do this job, he said, first and foremost, election integrity. Let's make sure that we fundamentally protect our democracy, and let's go after these elections, make them fair, free, safe, and secure.
So, Chairman, I assume that you guys already have, or probably did this the day it happened, the minute it happened, you guys already have campaigns working up ads where it's just basically a cookie cutter. It's them not standing for the president's statement. Insert your candidate here. This person will protect America. Is that the strategy going into the midterms?
Listen, I think there's no better video than that video. It shows it because that's exactly where America is right now. The Republicans are for common sense reasonableness. And for the average American, the president's gone to bat for him every single day. And the Democrats are for illegals. They'd rather protect their rights than the American rights. They'd rather give your money away and allow fraud to exist and all this other stuff. I don't know what happened to the Democrats. It's not your grandparents' Democrat Party. That we're dealing with these far left-wing wackadoos who have been inspired by Mamdani and AOC and Bernie Sanders. And it's enough is enough. Let's get our country back to normal, and let's continue to support the president who's going to bat for the average American on a daily basis.
We're talking with RNC Chairman Joe Gruters, and I agree with everything you're saying. I think this is of paramount importance. But when it comes to the midterms, people are going to be looking at the economy. Just to play devil's advocate for a second here, because we are the most pro-devil show on the airwaves, what do you think is going to happen if the economy doesn't turn around? I mean, we've seen historic wins for the economy. We've seen historic wins under the Trump administration. But right now, people are just looking at the price of the pump. They're looking at the price of the groceries, which are up because of the price of the pump, especially people in blue states like us here in Washington, where the price at the pump is up $1.50 because not of what's going on in Iran, but because of taxes. How do you cut through that messaging?
Well, listen, if you look at when the president took over, I think gas prices were higher, and he lowered them, and the conflict of Iran obviously caused some temporary setbacks, but the president has empathy, and he feels for people. This president's gone to bat for the American people every single day. That's why he passed that big, beautiful bill, the no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. That's why he's trying to bring investments back. That's why he put some of these tariffs on some of these countries to try to protect American jobs. For 5 decades, presidents and elitists in D.C. have been shipping our jobs down the river. This president has said enough. Let's bring these jobs back to America. Let's employ Americans. Let's protect the American worker. Let's have real rising wages. And he's accomplished a lot. Now, like I said, he says this conflict is temporary. I have full faith and confidence in the administration. And I think that by the time we hit November, I think the prices, his overall effort and to lower prices at the pump and across the board, I think we'll go back to normal. And I think the problem is that 4 years of Biden economics, Biden inflation, the disaster of the presidency, it's tough to steer, get the nose up, and the president has done it, and he will continue to do it. But that's obviously the most important issue, and we certainly have empathy for the people out there that are struggling.
Now, one of the most vulnerable seats when it comes to the midterms is Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez from our very own Washington state. That looks like she is the most vulnerable seat in the entire U.S. This race is being watched nationally. Is there anything else you guys have your eyes on here in Washington?
No, I think that's the only seat in Washington that's competitive, but we're very excited about that race. We do think we can win it. We have but listen, we have across the board. When you look at the whole country, you're not going to see a massive swing like you've seen in some of the other the midterms, because there's a lot fewer seats because of the gerrymandering, the redistricting that's happened. We have fewer seats to work with. We have superior resources. We have the best messaging we could possibly run on because everything the president has done and continues to do. And then we have the best showman that's ever existed within our party. Donald J. Trump is willing to work the districts. I don't know when the last time the president's been out to Washington, but I would expect him to come out there potentially and work that district and make sure that we can flip that seat.
We're talking with RNC Chairman Joe Gruters, and something else that people are talking about with regard to the Supreme Court is not the birthright citizenship case, but it's about mail-in ballots. Here in Washington state, it's amazing that on election night, one candidate will be up, but a week later they're losing, and then they're losing by more, and then they're losing by more because of all these ballots that come in after Election Day. Your thoughts on how the Supreme Court looks like it's going to rule on something like that?
Well, I was over at the Supreme Court last week, and I held a press conference, and we had the oral arguments, and we expect a verdict sometime soon. And listen, the fact that Election Day is not Election Day in 14 states and the District of Columbia blows my mind. The fact that they could find out exactly how many votes they need, and they could try to go after enough absentee ballots to change an election, it's disappointing and discouraging. What we've done is we've sued. That's a Watson versus RNC. I think this could be the biggest election integrity case we've had ever for the party, because Election Day will mean exactly what it means, Election Day. And they can't play games. But you got to remember what the Democrats are trying to do with the Save America Act, with the absentee ballots, across the board, these guys are trying to cheat. They're trying to find ways for them to gain an advantage. Because don't forget, they've allowed tens of millions of illegals to cross our borders, and now they want to try to figure out ways to allow them to vote. We have to call them out, and we have to stop them, and that's what we're trying to do.
RNC Chairman Joe Gruters, really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much, especially with how busy it is in the other Washington today. We really do appreciate it.
All right, thanks so much for having me on. Look forward to the next time.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And tonight begins the Jewish holiday of Passover. So we've got some best of content for you the next couple days because I will be home eating myself stupid on matzah and whatever else. But this did remind me of a funny story. It is now the anniversary of when I met the Kushners, including Ivanka Trump. So years ago, this is what people do for Passover. Because you can't have any leaven product in your house, anything of that nature, you have to use new dishes. You have to clean everything out. We almost had a nightmare last night where our fridge stopped working right after my wife had made everything for Passover. It puts Thanksgiving to shame, guys, okay? It's a zoo. Thank God we were able to get it working again. It's a whole thing. A repair guy is there right now fixing it right before Passover. But a lot of people go away so they don't have to deal with all this, and they go on these programs to hotels and vacation all over the world. A few years ago, my in-laws took us on one. It was during the first Trump administration. They took us on one to Whistler. So we go to the ski mountain. They do the whole Passover for you. They do all the food for you. It's phenomenal. So we're up there, and I noticed there's a lot of security guards around. And this is before I'm in talk radio or in politics or anything. A lot of security guards. They're all over the place. And then I'm at the buffet, and it's one of the buffets where you're on one side, and there's not somebody serving on the other side. It's other people on the side. It's just help yourself. And I'm standing next to my sister-in-law, and I elbow her in the ribs, and she goes, "What?" I go, "Look over there." And she goes, and I elbow her again, and she goes, "What?" And I said, "Look across from us, right over there." Ivanka Trump was standing right there. She in her ski gear, in her ski suit, she's standing right there. It turns out the Kushner family was on the program with us, and Ivanka was with them, and the Secret Service was with them. Now, my other favorite moment of this is my daughter, who must have been like 5 at the time, comes running into the room, and she says, "Daddy," in this big dining room, "Daddy, I have a secret to tell you." She's screaming this across the entire dining room. "Yes, sweetie, what's your secret?" "I just became best friends with the president's granddaughter." So, little kids are like that. What was the coolest thing is when they were skiing down the mountain, her and Jared, they're being followed by all these Secret Service agents. It looks like they're being pursued by bad guys in black jumpsuits in a Bond movie. Yeah, that was a very cool Passover, I will say. That was a lot of fun, but that was the first time I met the Kushners, and there's more stories about that, but I'll save that for next week when we have more episodes of the show. So you got Best of and you got Kevin for the next couple of days, but you still have your chance to win fantabulous prizes. So make sure you're listening at 4 o'clock for The Word. I'll be back on Monday with more insane stories, more exciting guests. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.